Wildcats football. Wildcats football.
I got it.
Wildcats football. Wildcats football.
Welcome to the Married with Picks podcast, season 3, episode 13, week 13.
It's December.
It is. So we have two teams on bye this week, the Cardinals and the Panthers. A lot of games and a lot of good matchups and revenge games. So let's get started here. Got to try to keep it brief, Steve, because we have a lot of games to get through. First game up is the New York Jets at the Minnesota Vikings. Open at -3.5 in favor of the Vikings. It's down to -3. So we had Mike White come in for the Jets last week and perform a little bit of magic, beating the Bears 31-10. He fared pretty well last week against a bad Bears defense. I don't think the Vikings defense is that good. I do worry a little bit because he did come in last year and have one good game, and then it was kind of downhill after that. But I'm going to give him a shot in this one. Jets defense is good. I think they can get Cousins uncomfortable, so I'm going with the Jets here.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings. And, I felt victim to Mike White's success in game one when he was substituted for Wilson last year. And he looked pretty good enough that I rode him a couple games after that and got burned. I'm not going to fall for that same situation this year. I'm not going to jump on the Mike White bandwagon yet. I do like him. I hope he actually turns out good because when he got a chance to play, at least he won the locker room over. So it seems like he's a decent character guy. But I don't think this week, I think it's too much of a task to ask for Mike White to go into Minnesota and beat Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. So, 1:00 game. I think the Vikings can pull this one out.
All right, so next game up is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Atlanta Falcons. Open at -1.5 in favor of the Falcons. It has shifted to 1 in favor of the Steelers. This is one game I really don't want anything to do with. Kenny Pickett has looked better in the past couple games, moving the ball. I don't really still know what to make of Atlanta. They seem to generally hang around in these games, and I really can't figure out how that is. So I got nothing on this.
Yeah, this is going to be one of my buck the trend games, Jaclyn.
Atlanta is always your buck the trend.
I'm going to take Atlanta, and this is the trend we're going to buck. It has nothing to do with Atlanta.
Okay.
It has everything to do with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is 12-1-1 straight up in the last 14 games versus Atlanta. And they're a favorite. So we're going to buck that trend. We're going to take the point in Atlanta. Listen, I just don't have confidence in the rookie quarterback that he can win this game on the road in Atlanta against a much better, I think, team all around than the Colts were last week that we saw, them struggle with, but eventually get the win at the end of the fourth quarter. So I'm going to take Atlanta here. I like Cordell Patterson have a big game.
Okay. All right, next game is the Tennessee Titans at the Philadelphia Eagles. Open at -6.5 in favor of the Eagles. It's down to -4.5 in favor of the Eagles. So this is an interesting game, isn't it, Steve?
Oh, very interesting.
Why
is that?
Well, because it's your Eagles. It's my Titans. I think the Eagles.
Your Titans. The
Eagles have had a pretty easy schedule this year, and we were talking about this a few weeks ago, trying to look ahead to who the Eagles played. And honestly, I think the Titans might be the toughest team that the Eagles are going to face this year, and that's partly because of their schedule. So one question I have, and I actually heard it on the radio since I wrote all this out, but Jordan Davis, I think they have until 4:00 tomorrow to activate him off of the IR.
What name's written there?
Right?
Jordan Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm fully expecting that to occur. I don't think there's even a doubt the way he's looked at practice. The reports are he looks good. He slimmed down. Time off on the IR has been spent getting him a little bit better shape, and I think he said he dropped about 20 pounds. So even for his size, you'd be a little bit worried for a tackle dropping 20 pounds in the middle of the season, but not with this guy. He had, every bit of 20 pounds, maybe 60 pounds to lose, and it's just going to help him get faster. So really where I'm looking at on this game is that I think that's the key to this game. I think his presence in the lineup, although he'll play mainly against the run, he won't play, he's not 3-down tackle. Being able to stop the run, they need every body that they can going up against Derrick Henry. So I think really that his young, he's a rookie, and the veteran tackles that they have on the team, along with the veteran linemen or defensive ends, love this guy. They get energized when he's back. So I'm not even looking at he should make a big difference because he does clog the middle. He's the biggest body, but it's more like he's going to be infectious. And the rest of the team is going to play better because of it.
Well, so we've seen the Eagles kind of get gashed on the ground the last few weeks, and I kind of had asked you about what the difference was, and it kind of came down to it being Jordan Davis. So if he's back, that's a little worrisome for me. Personally, I think this game comes down to one guy, and it is A.J. Brown. This is a revenge game to him. I think he's an emotional player, and I don't think he liked what Tennessee did in trading him. So I think it comes down to him and how the game goes for him, because he's going to want to get revenge on Tennessee. He's going to want to show them what they gave up. So if he gets going early, then it could be trouble for the Titans. But if he doesn't, it could be trouble for the Eagles, because I can see him getting frustrated. He got frustrated in a game a couple weeks ago. So that's what it comes down to for me. Either way, Tennessee's going to play him tough on defense, so I think it will be a close game, and I'm still going to take the points and take the Titans. Well, saying they win.
I love the point that you made about A.J. Brown, because I think similar to the point I made about Baby Davis coming back at tackle, that he's going to be infectious because he's going to the rest of the team knows, and I'm sure he'll make he'll make it known to the rest of the team in the locker room before the game how much he wants to win this game. I think everybody's going to step up their effort a little bit more, which I think the Eagles are very talented. I think everybody can agree that they've looked a little sluggish, or, especially giving up yards on the ground over the last couple of weeks. But I think this is where you're going to get these guys going, and we're going to see exactly what the Eagles have. The other thing I want to point out is if you look through the schedule for the Titans, there's not many losses on the schedule the rest of the way. You want to talk about easy schedules. They're 7-4 right now, right? They lost to the Bengals last week. And typically I would say this is a great place to play them because they just lost. But they got the Jaguars twice, right? They had the Jaguars right after the Eagles and at the end of the season. So Jaguars twice, those are probably wins. They're playing the Chargers, who are all kinds of banged up. And I think Tennessee's way too tough for them.
Their run defense is bad.
The Texans.
Their run defense is bad.
And then the Cowboys.
And Derrick Henry always has big games against the Jag.
Yeah, and the Cowboys are, maybe you could argue the Cowboys is a loss, but, that's at home on Sunday night. So Tennessee's going to be ready to play that game. It's not like it's going to be a letdown. So I wouldn't figure a letdown. So given that, they could run the table here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the last 5 games of the season. I think this is a loss for Tennessee. And then they make their run strongly into the playoffs.
Okay, but who's your pick? Is your pick the Eagles? The Eagles are going to win by more than 4.5?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. They're going to win by at least 7.
Okay. All right.
I'm looking for like 24-17, 24-13, 24-10, something like that.
Okay. I'm going like 24-20.
But if they can't stop Henry, they're all... If they play the run like they have been,
well, let me ask you this,
trouble.
Because last week we saw the Bengals kind of load the box, stop Henry. Mm-hmm. Do you think the Eagles will take that approach?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to.
Well, you've said that your defensive coordinator doesn't make adjustments and all that stuff. So
yeah, but they've been playing a lot more, concentrating on stopping the run. They've been playing a lot of more 5-man fronts up front, where they usually play just 4-man fronts. So, it shows me that at least they adjusted the last game, the game before, and tried to, stop the run. So he's making adjustments to the overall game plan. It's just, mid-game when they're getting thrashed, he doesn't make good adjustments.
Okay. I'm predicting a long run for Henry for a touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
We shall.
I think we'll be fine.
All right, let's move on. Next game, Jacksonville Jaguars at the Detroit Lions. It's at -1 in favor of the Lions. So I've loved Dan Campbell since we watched Hard Knocks. But I have to say, like right now, I think the Lions are a legitimate team. I mean, last week they went toe to toe with the Bills and they ended up on the wrong side of it, but that game could have gone either way. Jacksonville last week.
But how much of last week's Detroit game, it's Thanksgiving. They usually play pretty strong at home.
But they played strongly in the games leading up. I mean, they've really kind of turned the corner, I think.
I hear you. But,
So, and meanwhile, we have Jacksonville. They were down in the game against the Ravens last week, came back in the second half when they started throwing. That's kind of the Ravens' MO recently. They've given up some big leads in the fourth quarter. So I just think that the Lions still are overall the better team, and I'm going with the Lions.
All right. This is probably my game of the week. All right, and I'll explain it in a second. But even though the Jags have won 2 of 3, and ETN is expected to play, per Doug Peterson, I love Detroit. And I'm going to tell you why. When you just look at the schedule for Detroit, not the future schedule, but the past schedule, right? If we go down the schedule, they pretty much lose to teams that have above 500 records and are considered good or playoff teams. And they win against teams that are sub 500 and are not as good. It's that cut clear.
Oh, okay.
They beat the Eagles, or they lost to the Eagles. They lost to the Vikings, Seahawks, Patriots coming in this week. We're 6-5. Cowboys 8-3. Dolphins, right? These are all their losses. Bills, all really good teams, right? You'd expect them to lose.
Detroit was in a lot of these games, other than the Patriots game where they just got smoked.
Won against the Commanders, okay, the Packers, the Bears, the Giants. Okay. The Giants, the exception, they have a good record, but are the Giants? Is anybody really scared of the Giants? And they're starting to falter. So, I think Detroit definitely wins this game because the Jags are 4-7. I think this is a loss for them. Who knows how long, even if ETN plays, that he'll last, because he only played 3 plays last game and he didn't even look to come back in. So I like Detroit here too. I'm right with you.
All right, good. We're on the same side of that one. All right, so the next game up is the Washington Commanders at the New York Giants. It opened at -1. It's at -1.5 in favor of, I don't think that's right because I thought it was higher, but regardless. So this is a division game. Both these teams have 7 wins. Commanders at 7-5. Giants at 7-4. So Washington has won 7 of their last 8 games. 5 of those wins attributable to Heineke. They have a good defense and they're good against the run. They also have played quite a few games against teams with running quarterbacks, and they have fared well there. Jets were overachieving early in the season. They have lost 3 out of their last 4. They also have a ton of injuries. So offensive lineman Josh, I don't know how you say his last name, and Shane Lemieux are out. Cornerback Adoree Jackson is out. Dayball wouldn't commit in an interview on who would play center and who would play left guard in this game. So that's not good if you're juggling your offensive line around, especially when you're going up against the Washington defensive line. 2 other cornerbacks, Darnay Holmes and Fabian Moreau, are questionable. Wide receivers Richie James and Darius Slayton are questionable, and tight end Bellinger is also questionable. So a lot of injuries. And I just think the Giants overachieved early and they're on the downward side here. So I'm going to stick with Heineke and hope he comes through again. Who's your pick?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 teams that I see just like sprinting towards the end of the season that I feel I'm not going to go against the rest of the year until they lose. And Washington's one of them. I mean, they've won 6 out of 7. They clearly started slow, but are now, in contention in the NFC to make the playoffs. They're sitting at 7-5.
Well, you got. Right, I mean, there. Assuming you guys have the top seed, it's not really like. Yeah, well, because they're playing for a wild card.
Well, yeah, but they're playing for a wild card. Win and get in, baby. That's all that matters, right? So
I guess
matter
my
about
only
the division.
Point was the matchup between the 2 division teams isn't as important because, in theory, the division is already locked up.
Yeah, I beg to differ. I mean, we could get into a long debate about this, but they're 7-5, and the Giants are 7-4. I mean, they're playing against a team that they have direct competition against to get into the playoffs. Dallas is sitting only a game above them, so take the Eagles out. Forget about the Eagles, and they could catch them. There's still 6 games left, but the Eagles are sitting up top at 10-1. If you just look at the Cowboys, 1 game ahead, the Giants are tied, and if you look through, 7 wins gets you in the playoffs right now. So, I mean, everybody else that's a division that's not winning the division, the best record is 6-5, Seattle. So Washington has, they have a playoff spot locked up right now if it started today. If it started today, Jaclyn, every team in the NFC East would be in the playoffs. It's crazy because those are, you take the division winners out.
They're usually the worst division.
Well, yeah. And they're saying the worst division, right? So you can even look at the schedule or look at the records and say, yeah, they have the best records and they're all going to get in the playoffs. So they're really strong, or, they're benefiting from weak schedules. And they definitely, when the season started, like the top 4, let's say, I think 4 out of 5 easiest schedules from a rankings perspective were the NFC East teams.
Okay,
so
well, that's fine.
It's interesting though, because, playoffs start today, they're all in. So anyway, I'm going to keep rolling with Washington. The other team that keeps rolling, we'll talk about in a little bit, but.
All right. So next game is the Cleveland Browns at the Houston Texans. Open at -5.5 in favor of Cleveland. It's up to -7. So we have the return of Deshaun Watson to the NFL after, what's it been, 2 full years now that he hasn't played. And this is a revenge game against his former team, which I always thought was funny that his suspension was 11 games, leaving it so that he could come back for this game. I'm not sure how much they're going to have to rely on him. I would imagine he would be a little rusty since he has not played in a few years. But the Texans have one of the worst run defenses in the league. Kyle Allen will start again in this game. He wasn't able to do much last week against the Dolphins until basically garbage time. Brandon Cooks has also been ruled out already for this game. So I think the Browns, and it feels pretty safe. What you got here?
This game's tough because I don't even really want to play it because it looks like it's a Houston cover. But I don't want to take them. I don't want to.
Why do you say Houston cover?
Because of a lot of the reasons why you said. I think they're, the team's going to get amped up to play against Deshaun Watson. They're at least going to show up. I don't think they want to go out at home and let him come back his first game and get annihilated. It's going to be a bad look. But who knows what's going to happen? Maybe half the fans show up in Houston and they're cheering for him. I don't know. It'd be weird to see what happens because it's obviously a very sensitive topic for what's surrounding the past accusations for him. But regardless of that, I don't really trust that he's going to come back and just light up the world. Like I'm a big believer in his athletic talents. Let's leave it at that. But I don't believe he comes out of the gate firing, and I'm not sure that he can win this game.
Well, I don't know that he really has to do much because I think they want to run the ball generally. That's what they're going to be able to do here. So
I think the key for Houston
perfect
is that,
spot for him to.
Yeah, you would think. I mean, coming into this, it's hard to argue against it, but because he's comfortable, playing in Houston, he should be comfortable and be able to get at least a little bit loose.
I don't know that he's going to be phased at all by anything, but.
Well, it depends on how much
everybody else might be.
I'd be shocked if they put him in front of the media in Houston before the game. I think that would be a major mistake. And I guess you have to put him in front of the media in front of Houston after the game. That's going to be the interesting piece. But I think the smartest thing that Houston did is they got Kyle Allen in and get some action last week so that he would be a little bit more confident, a little bit more prepared to go get Cleveland because Houston doesn't want to lose this game.
All right. So do you have a pick on this game?
If I had to play it, I'll take Houston.
Okay. All right. Next game is the Denver Broncos at the Baltimore Ravens. Open at -6.5 in favor of the Ravens. It's up to -8.5. This is another game I really don't want anything to do with. Broncos on average are scoring less than 16 points a game. This is a big line for a Ravens team that can't seem to hold on to a lead. And I don't trust Wilson to come back in the fourth quarter. So I don't feel comfortable taking the Ravens at 8.5, and I don't want to take the Broncos either. So I'm just avoiding this game.
I'm going to take the Ravens until this is kind of the opposite where I have the two teams I'm going to keep rolling with. I'm going to go against the Broncos, I think, the rest of the season until they prove to me. I don't know what to expect. Like, they might jump together based off the story that came out, like, you know, based off the movie Draft Day. If you remember watching Draft Day, because I made you watch it one night. It was the movie with Kevin Costner where he was the general manager of the Browns.
Okay.
And you remember the guy who was like the number one quarterback dropped in the draft, and the story that came out about him was that he had a birthday party and his teammates came to his birthday party because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, so apparently reports are exaggerated that nobody showed up to his birthday party. It should be noted that even if half the team it was reported that half the team showed up, that's pretty strong for a day off. Like, you're not getting me to go to anybody's birthday party on a day off in the middle of the NFL season. So that's interesting, you know, the spin on it. But, you know, are they going to rally now, you know, around Russell Wilson and the perception that has been painted by some media members that he's not a team player, that nobody's all inspired to be playing with him on the field? I don't know. But
you don't think so because you're taking the Ravens.
I don't think so. I'm going to take Baltimore, and I'm going to go against Denver the rest of the way until they prove that they can cover a spread.
Okay. All right. So next game up is the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. This is a division game. Open at -2.5 in favor of the Packers. It's up to -3. So we saw it personally, Rodgers get hurt in the Eagles game last week. It sounds like he will play. So I'm not sure if he'll be 100%. I kind of almost feel like he just doesn't want Jordan Love getting in there. And Fields actually does not have an injury designation for this game. But I don't know if do you think he can't possibly be 100%, right? So... And
no, it's definitely not 100%. I mean, he got banged up and his finger's jammed or broken.
No, not his finger. It's his shoulder.
Who?
Fields.
Oh.
Maybe because you're texting over there. You weren't paying. He is playing. He does not have an injury designation. He's not even questionable. He's like nothing. Like there's nothing next to his name. He was a full participant in practice.
Okay.
And Trevor Siemian, who was supposed to start last week. Then he got hurt in pregame, and they said Peterman was going to start, and then he started, and now he's done for the season. So he played that whole game, I guess, hurt. But so it would be Nathan Peterman or Tim Boyle would be the backup options. So if I knew that Fields was good, I definitely like the Bears. But if not, then you have to go with the Packers, I think. I don't know to what extent it just comes down to like a pain management thing. Then I would feel a little bit better. It is his non-throwing shoulder, but it could affect his running. So that's where I'm at on this game.
You know, you should come to the Eagles game with me this week. I got an extra ticket.
No, I was there last week. I'm good. And I'm not sitting in them damn nosebleed sections, especially after seeing them in person. That's high.
Yeah, but let's hire from down low. It's only 9 rows up in the second section.
That whole section is high.
There's like a good 40 rows. It's only 9.
I get dizzy once.
9.
Once I get up there, I get dizzy.
All right, sorry. Anyway, I digress. Who the hell knows if I was going to say if Aaron Rodgers is going to play or not? And it's like
no, Aaron Rodgers I think is playing too.
I know. I saw it's questionable, but it sounded like he was going to play. So I don't know. I mean, I want to take Chicago because I just don't think the Packers are any good. But how can you take Chicago just knowing the history of Aaron Rodgers against the Bears? I mean, who's your daddy, right? So I'm going to lay off this game. I don't have a pick.
Okay. All right. Next game is the Seattle Seahawks at the Los Angeles Rams.
If I had to, Bears.
Open at -3 in favor of Seattle. It's up to -7. So the Rams have no Stafford, no Kupp. Now they have no Aaron Donald. They pretty much packed it in for the season. Seattle coming off 2 tough losses to Tampa Bay in Germany and to Josh Jacobs running 86 yards on them in overtime last week. So I think it's a spot for them to get back on track, and I would take Seattle up to 7.
Yeah, I mean, 7-point favorites on the road is a tough take for Seattle. However, John Wolford is the quarterback of the Rams. I'll take Seattle as well.
Okay. All right, next game. This is one of the 4:00 games are pretty good games this week. So we have the Miami Dolphins traveling to San Francisco, take on the 49ers. It opened at -4.5 in favor of the 49ers. It's down to -3.5. So we have Mike McDaniels, who came from San Francisco, who was the offensive coordinator last year under Shanahan, going back to face his former team. Raheem Mostert had some bulletin board material during the week. I think this is definitely the best defense that Tua is going to face. Miami certainly has the firepower with Hill and Waddle. San Francisco wants to run the ball. Miami has a pretty good run defense, so I don't know if they're going to have to put it on Jimmy G a little more if they're going to get the win here. There are a lot of injuries in this game, though, that really... So the Dolphins have offensive tackle Austin Jackson is out. Left tackle Teron Armstead is doubtful. 49ers offensive tackle Trent Williams left practice on Friday. He is questionable. Debo is questionable. CMC was questionable, but he is a full participant at practice. I don't even know what happened. I just saw it that Elijah Mitchell has already been ruled out. Their defensive tackle, Eric Armstead, will be back. I assume they're brothers, but I'm not sure. And so it's a good game. I really worry here about Shanahan kind of playing it too safe late if they do get up on the Dolphins, that he'll, not go for it on a 4th and 1 at the 40-yard line or something like that and kind of cough up the lead. And I think with the Dolphins having the firepower, I think they can keep it close. I think their only path to victory is really for their defense to get to Tua. So I got to take the points and take the Dolphins. But I kind of personally would like to see San Fran win. What do you got?
Well, it's interesting. We roll into this game, and this is my other team that I'm going to continue to play until the end of the season, probably, but at least until they lose or don't cover. I like the Dolphins. I think that McDaniel definitely is going to be pumped up to win this game. He's going to put every ounce of effort into beating San Fran. That's just his personality. He's going to want to go get the team that he, came up with, per se. So I like the Dolphins a lot. I think the line's going down to 3.5 for a reason. I'm going to continue to roll with the Dolphins with Tua, because since Tua has come back, he has not lost. And this team just seems like, they're getting stronger, they're getting better, and they have a lot of the weapons on offense that, to make a deep, deep run into the playoffs. So I'm high proponent of the Dolphins. I honestly, at this point, they're my pick. They're my underdog pick to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I like them or the Bengals, but I'll take the Dolphins in this one.
All right, I'm with you. All right, next game is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. It opened at -3 in favor of the Chargers. It has shifted to -1 in favor of the Raiders. This is a division game. These teams played back in week 1. Chargers won that game 24-19. Chargers have a really bad run defense, and we saw what Jacobs did in the game last week. He is questionable. He was a limited participant at practice. So if he doesn't play, that would worry me a little bit on the Raiders side. For Chargers, their center is out. Mike Williams is out. We haven't really seen the Chargers blow teams out. The Raiders are very much unpredictable, but they're probably riding a little bit high off of these 2 overtime victories they've had in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, these are the teams that played last year, and Raiders won that game to get into the playoffs. I don't really have a pick on this, I don't think. Every time I take the Chargers, they don't cover, but you really can't trust the Raiders. I don't have a gut feel like I did last week.
Well, Mike Williams is out, right? And I'm not sure if Josh Palmer is going to play. He's questionable, right? Corey Lindsey, the center on offense there, is not going to play this week. But probably the biggest missing piece for the Chargers is going to turn out to be Trey Pipkins, who's the right tackle. And he's going to be out for the game. So you're looking at this game. I think this is kind of the way this plays out. It's going to be the Raiders. Long story short, I like the Raiders, and they're going to cover. And this is why, because they're going to start winning games towards the end of the season here to even out for the horrible losses that they had in the beginning of the season. So they're probably end up being like around the 500 team. But if they lose this, they're going to go to like 4-8. And I just see this as the major revenge game for the beginning of the season. They're two division opponents. It's really tough to beat a division opponent twice in one season. And I think the Raiders are just so upset that they've played so bad. They haven't quit, obviously, from last week, putting 40 points up on the board. I think they gain confidence and to a man start to roll like we thought the Raiders were going to play in the beginning of the season. So I think this is a perfect matchup for them to catch the Chargers, where the Chargers are, not playing as great as we thought that they could be playing, but have some serious injuries that could, you can't really count on Keenan Allen until he produces, because even though he came back, 2 weeks ago, he still hasn't done anything really. So I think they're undergunned here, and I look for a big running attack. Like you said, the Chargers don't play the run very well. Go
But
Raiders.
do you worry if Jacobs doesn't play?
No, I like the Raiders.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would like that line better if it was like 3, because then I maybe could.
See, because here's what you also got to think about, okay, on that one. This is why I got to take the Raiders, is that the Raiders are familiar with the Chargers, right? And when they have these injuries, what have they been doing? I mean, they're just dumping the ball off to Eckler.
I just worry about the Raiders' motivation level.
The Raiders are going to play that.
And they've always been that team.
Take that away, because they understand how the Chargers have been, how they play typically. And a lot of teams, they just don't pick him up coming out of the backfield and causes problems for him. So especially when the quarterback's struggling, he likes to just dump it, and move 5 yards down the field at a time.
All right. So next game is the Kansas City Chiefs at the Cincinnati Bengals. Open at -3 in favor of the Chiefs. It's down to -2.5. So this is another interesting big game. These teams have played twice last year in the regular season and in the playoffs. Bengals won both of those matchups, coming back in the second half. Do you know that the Bengals held the Chiefs to 3 points in the second half of each of those games?
That's interesting.
It sounds like Jamar Chase will be back, but you'll have to watch for that on Sunday, because they made it sound like he was going to play last week and he didn't. So I think
here's the thing about Chase that I read, is that he had a full practice today, which is the first time since October.
Okay.
So you can guarantee he's playing.
So, I mean, it would definitely probably be a motivation for him to come back here. So I think it'll be a close game. I think you got to take the points and take the Bengals.
Okay.
Other thing you could do is take the Chiefs in the first half and the Bengals in the second half, if you think this game will follow a similar pattern to what the previous games did. But yeah, I mean, I think you got to take the points.
I mean, with Chase coming back, you got Mixon still questionable, right? And is it Wilson has an illness, I think, the center, or I don't know if he's going to be in or out. But Cincinnati's 3-1 at home. Chiefs are 4-1 on the road. So the Chiefs are pretty strong with an overall record of 9-2. I like Cincinnati, like I said earlier, to kind of represent the AFC possibly in the Super Bowl again. I think that the Bengals are going to build up steam, but this is a weird game where the line just doesn't. You figure the Bengals, this would be one of the few games the Chiefs would be underdogs going on the road to the Bengals.
Well, how could they be an underdog?
Well, the Bengals are pretty strong, and you got Chase coming back. So, I mean, with Chase coming back, I would think that some of the money would shift to the Bengals.
Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm just trying to make my pick. I don't know why you're arguing with me.
Well, because I don't agree with you on that.
I haven't even made my pick yet.
I think the line's right.
I like the Chiefs.
Okay.
The line's telling me. I don't think the line's right. The line's telling me to take the Chiefs.
Okay.
I think a lot of action is going to be. What is the action looking like? Is it more on the Chiefs or the Bengals? Do you have that?
I don't know.
I should have.
Yeah, it's all on the Chiefs.
Okay.
That's more reason to take the Bengals.
That's interesting, but
isn't it?
I think the line's wrong. I mean, it's definitely wrong to the point where it feels like it's a trap. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'm looking at it as a revenge game for playoffs last year.
Okay.
That's probably why the line's 2.5, like Vegas knows.
Okay. All right. So now we're into the primetime games. We have the Indianapolis Colts at the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are minus 10.5 favorites. So that's a big line. I do think that the Cowboys pass rush versus Matt Ryan and the bad Colts offensive line could get them the win. It could be a game like the game against the Vikings where the Colts just can't do much, or it could be a backdoor cover like Thanksgiving game with the Giants. But my sense would be to take the Cowboys up to 10, but anytime the line's double digits,
I want to take the Colts, right?
Well,
it just seems, and this is probably where you should take the Colts, where everybody's like, screw the Colts. They look like they gave up.
It is a primetime game, so I would definitely watch where the money goes and go opposite. But
yeah. Well, the money's definitely going to go Cowboys, so that's the thing. The line's probably going to shoot up even more, right?
I mean, if it's 10.5, I could see it finishing at 10 for sure.
Just don't want to take the Colts, but hey, I think the Colts are probably the where to play.
All right, so final game of the week is Monday night's New Orleans Saints at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucs open at minus 6.5 point favorites. It's down to minus 3.5. I don't know what that says. Saints have been a team historically since Brady went to Tampa Bay that the Bucs have struggled with. These teams played back in week 2. The Bucs won that game 20-10. But it was 3-3 going into the fourth quarter. That was Jameis Winston in that game. He had a couple turnovers that allowed the Bucs to take the lead. Contrary to public opinion last week, and I'd like to personally thank Tom Brady because he cost me about $1,600. But the Bucs are not back. The Saints are playing terrible. So I don't know what to do with this game. I'm just not going to touch it. I would imagine that the money would have to be on the Bucs, but the line went down, so I don't know.
So
I can't take the Saints.
Tampa Bay was one of 12 teams you picked on a parlay card?
It was a teaser.
And
it was, yes.
Teaser parlay card.
Yeah.
12 teams, right?
12.
11-1.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom Brady. Thank you. And they had every opportunity to win that fucking game. It was brutal.
Love it when you talk nasty.
So, I mean, I don't know what to do with that.
I think the line is coming down because, it's clearly getting bet by the Saints.
Money's on the
history.
Saints. But, I mean,
It's December. Here comes Tom Brady. It's December. Here comes Tom Brady.
No, we said that last week.
It was not December.
It wasn't December, but we said it's late in the season.
November,
this is where they come on. Blah, 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 blah.
December. This is where it comes.
Blah, blah, blah.
We'll see Tom Brady turning it on tonight. This time.
No, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong.
I like Tampa.
So, all right.
I definitely like Tampa.
So that will do it. Oh, you know what? The one thing I forgot and I didn't write it down.
Like and subscribe.
Yes. So that will do it for us for week 13.
Wildcats football.
Peace out.
Wildcats football.
Whalers. Retro Hartford Whalers.
Wildcats football.